Hey gang, Jake here. You know, it's not too common for a series to get a new installment that simultaneously makes them a great pick for a crossover fighter and makes them a worse pick for a crossover fighter. That makes Gunvolt a really special case, because as of Gunvolt 3, it's one of the few instances that comes to mind. But despite the changes Gunvolt 3 made to GV's world, I think if we cherry pick what works from that game and leave out what doesn't, we can come up with a set of content that really works. Today, we'll be taking a look at what we can take from Gunvolt 3 to best represent the franchise in Fraymakers. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So if you haven't been here for too long, this isn't actually the first video I've made on how GV could play in Fraymakers. The first one is very old and bad though, so as a quick refresher, let's go through the broad strokes of his moveset. GV is a mostly rushdown focused character with elements of Zoner whose big focus is on throwing the opponent off their game long enough to land some seriously powerful moves, specifically his neutral special. It's a large sphere that surrounds GV with electricity, which has a nuts hitbox and great frame data, but deals practically non-existent damage. GV can deal with this by using a side special, which fires a small dart at opponents to tag them. Once an opponent is tagged, they take damage from the flash field pretty much anywhere on stage, and tags can be stacked up to 3 times to deal even more damage. The caveat to this is that the flash field is tied to a separate meter, Gunvolt's EP gauge. This is a measure of the electricity in Gunvolt's body, and it gets drained when he either uses flash field or takes damage, so avoiding opponents is key. Once it runs out, GV is basically just a kid with some martial arts until it recharges, which means he can't access his specials, he takes more damage, and he deals less damage with every attack he can access. Most of those attacks are derived from his appearances in Blade Strangers and Mighty Gunvolt, and they're generally interpretations of his Chatan Yara Kusanku fighting style with electricity thrown into the mix. With that said, let's get into the juicy part, the new stuff. As for his moveset, there's really not a ton to cover, but the major thing is his up special, the Spark Dash. For this move, GV takes some inspiration from Copen and shoots himself into the air, which doesn't have incredible recovery, but it does have one critical use, which is that it's sort of a command grab. During the animation, GV can run into opponents, and normally he'll deal some solid damage and get a boost to his recovery. However, if a special condition is met, whether that's hitting an opponent with 3 tags or maybe a special input, GV will perform his Voltaic Buster, zapping and pile driving the opponent into the dirt. This is one of GV's strongest options, but it's pretty situational, and if you don't put in the work to use it properly, it's not going to get you very far. As for his down special, I still want it to be Crash Bolts, but realistically I could see it being repped in 2 ways. This move has a huge hitbox, so I could see it being really fast and dealing mad damage, or being really slow and hitting like a truck. Personally, I think the former is a better representation of the move, but realistically I think the latter might be better for the set, so I'm not really sure. For GV's super, I previously mentioned I wanted both Luxcalibur and Voltaic Chains, but I think realistically the latter is a better fit, and it would work perfectly on its own. Lastly, let's go over some new extra content for GV. For the voice, I think Kaito Ishikawa's performance is iconic, but Sean Chiplock's performance is also stellar, so I'd take either one really. His default costume should probably be his GV3 design, but I'd still love to see and would mostly use a GV2 ult. For his skins, I want to highlight just a few characters I think deserve a reference. Copen, Yota, Tenjian, Quinn, Kirin, and Zed should do the trick. For a stage, Sinner's Row would still be really cool, but Gunvolt 3 in particular has plenty of cool levels that'd be great to adapt. Cyber Daydream, Megafloat Neptune, and Another Sun come to mind. Finally, for an assist, highlighting one of the secondary protagonists would probably be wise, but I'm going to propose a slightly stranger option, the Djinn. Basically, this assist would work sort of like Jean Grey's Dark Phoenix in Marvel 3, with some adjustments. Over the course of the match, this assist wouldn't actually do anything, but if you have full meter and you lose your last stock, she'll resurrect you with a boost to your power and speed, although it would also have the downside of dealing constant chip damage to you. This would make pretty much every fight against you feel kinda like GV3's bosses, and it'd be a fun option that doesn't work like anything else in Fraymakers so far. All in all, despite how I may feel about Gunvolt 3, I think it presents some possibilities to really make the franchise's representation shine, and I'd love to see it show up still. I want to thank you guys for watching. This video is in a weird spot because I've already talked about the subject, but I felt it was worth coming back to, and it made for a relatively quick vid, which is good because I've got some projects that I'm really excited to put some time into. I know it's been a hot minute since I've discussed Fraymakers or Smash Bros, but I'm still super passionate about both games, and with Fraymakers Early Access arriving soon, and Nintendo putting out banger after banger, I think the future is bright for the channel. That's about all I've got to say though. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.